Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/slash Raised by Narcissists. In today's episode, my daughter's loose tooth. How my mom acted during the most painful time of my life. I'm so happy I don't have to deal with family meals anymore. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. My daughter's loose tooth. About a week ago, my daughter, age 6, had a very loose tooth. A hanging by a thread, 90 degrees angle, so loose it hurts, loose tooth. I was afraid she was going to swallow it while eating. I should mention that, through a series of happy accidents and dental work, that we have yet to have to actually pull a tooth out of her head. First couple came out at daycare, next few during some dental work, and the last one popped out while she was eating a gummy *cur. She started complaining that it hurt. I explained that it hurt because it was so loose and needed to come out. She started crying. I wasn't sure what to do. I knew it needed to come out, but I didn't want to pull it if she wasn't ready. I didn't want to scare or traumatize her. But it seemed silly. I mean, it's just a little baby tooth. I know that she's barely gonna feel it, but she doesn't know that, and she's terrified. I thought back to when I had loose teeth as a kid. I have made it my general parenting rule to do the opposite of whatever my parents did. So I reached back into my cloudy childhood memories. I generally don't feel that my childhood memories are reliable. I've blocked a lot out, I've changed details, and hearing my parents' versions of events repeatedly had made me question things. I couldn't remember details, but I do remember being restrained and held down. I remember the floss being tied around my tooth, and then it being pulled out. I don't remember pain, but I do remember being terrified and confused. I had my answer. I picked my baby girl up, and calmly re-explained that it was hurting because it was so loose and needed to come out. She started crying harder. I held her while she calmed down, and then we talked. I promised her that I would not pull it until she was ready. I told her we could eat some crunchy/chewy food to see if it comes out. She said it hurt too much to bite with it. I told her that the only other option was to pull it out, and her eyes filled with tears. I again promised her that I would not pull it until she was ready. She agreed, we pinky promised, and she ran off to play. She came back to me half a dozen times over the next few hours, asking for reassurance that I would not pull it until she was ready. I reiterated my promise and assured her that this was up to her. After all, it's her body, not mine. 4 hours or so after the initial tears, my daughter reappeared in front of me. She looked scared, but determined, and was clutching her favorite stuffed unicorn with a death grip. All she said was "I'm ready," and opened her mouth. I took her tooth between my fingers and plucked it right out of her mouth. Her free hand shot to her mouth, and, with a quick little gasp, she exclaimed, "I did it." I matched her excitement and told her how awesome she did. We rinsed her mouth out and put her tooth away for the tooth fairy. I thought that was the end of it. Much to my surprise and delight, it was not the end of it. My sweet, amazing girl spent the next 4 full days telling anyone, and everyone, how brave she was and how proud she was of herself. I cried the first time that she said it. At her age, I was being taught that saying, or even feeling, anything good about myself was bragging. I was taught that saying things like "I'm proud of myself" made me a stuck-up brat, and that nobody would like me. Even when my parents were proud of me, which was just the wording they used to brag to other people, never said to me directly, it was only for accomplishments. Things that could be measured. High grades, though that was expected regardless, sports wins, music awards, and the like. It was never instilled in me, and frankly never occurred to me, to be proud of myself for what I am, instead of for what I do. And yet here is my 6-year-old daughter, not only knowing intrinsically that she has worth, but harnessing that sense of self-worth to do hard things. And above all that, being comfortable enough in her own skin, and confident enough to vocalize that she's proud of herself, and why. I know it seems like such a little thing, especially to those who didn't grow up like we all did. But to me it was such a huge moment, for my girl and for myself. I so often feel like I'm just plodding along in parenting, trying to do my best, but only have a reverse blueprint to go off of. And that's hard. It's hard to know what's definitely wrong in parenting, but not know exactly what's right either. But this small anecdote made me feel like we're doing something right. I know we won't be perfect parents, no one can be. But this feels like such a huge step in the right direction. And, thanks to what I learned from my little girl, I can say that I'm proud of myself. I'm breaking the cycle, I'm brave and strong, and I'm proud of myself. For what I've done, and for who I am. How my mom acted during the most painful time of my life. Trigger warning: this does involve the passing of a child. First, let me say that I am in a support group for people who have lost a child. It's very helpful for my grief, but it's hard to fully address what happened with my mother during this time. I'm not looking for people to bash my mother, I just want people who understand to hear what I went through. My mom can be very toxic, but she isn't a bad person. She is mentally ill, BPD, paranoia, and NPD. I don't hate her, but I can't have her in my life unless she starts getting help. My 6-month-old daughter passed away from a bacteria that caused her to go into septic shock in October 2019. I will be mentioning some things regarding that, but not going into the full story. What I want to focus on is my mother's actions and how they affected me. After being in the hospital for 2 days, we found out that my daughter wasn't going to make it. My husband is in the military, and we lived 16 hours away from home. For the first time since I was a teenager, I called my mom crying and told her I needed her. She said she would come, but she didn't have a reliable car. So, one of my best friends that lived close to her said that she would drive her up. My mom didn't need to pay for anything. My friend covered the whole trip, and the military covered hotel rooms when they got here. When my mom first got there, 2 days later, it was kind of a blur. She started telling me that before they told me my daughter wasn't going to make it, she had called the hospital and said something along the lines of, "We are a Christian family, and we believe in God. We will always believe in God over medicine." Then a few hours later, my daughter's brain swelled, and they said she would never wake up again. My mom was convinced that the doctors had done something to my daughter because they were against Christians. I defended the doctors because I truly do feel that they did everything in their power to help my daughter. After that, we all were pretty much just sitting around the room waiting for my MIL to get there. She was traveling from much further, and it would take her a few hours more. I was looking through Facebook reading the messages of support and prayers for my daughter. Then, I saw a GoFundMe posted by my older sister on my father's side. I mentioned out loud that my sister made a GoFundMe for my daughter. My mom got annoyed and said, "Are you sure it was her? Your sister, my mom's daughter, made one for me to have gas money to get down here." I looked at the GFM, and it said it was supposed to be money for my daughter, nothing about gas money, but it was made by my younger sister. I said she was right, and it was made by my younger sister, and my older sister just shared it. It had also been shared on our local military page. It had around $800 on it, and a lot of beautiful messages of support. When my mom heard this, the first thing she said was, "Oh good, my electric is due soon, and that can cover it." I was a little annoyed that the first thing she could think about was paying her electric bill with money raised for my daughter, but I didn't feel like arguing it at this point. My friend, on the other hand, got really annoyed and told her that she couldn't make a GFM for one thing, and then use it for another. My mom tried to argue with her that it was always for gas, but my friend told her that's not how it was worded, and she couldn't touch that money. I asked them both to drop it because this was the last concern on my mind. My mom was annoyed and decided to nap. While she was napping, the hospital chaplain that had been coming to see us every day since we arrived came in to check on us. He asked if we wanted him to pray with us, and I said yes. I woke my mom up and asked her if she wanted to come in on the prayer circle, and she said no, she was tired. So, she just napped on the couch while we prayed. When my MIL arrived, the first thing she did was hug me, and then go to pray over my daughter. This kind of upset my mom because my mom said we made her feel like she wasn't welcome to pray over our daughter. She said that she felt like we didn't allow God into that room. I don't know what happened to make her feel that way, but she said it was our fault that she didn't get to behave how she wanted to. After my MIL settled in, we explained everything to everyone about what was going to happen. Shortly after my MIL arrived, the doctor came in and performed the final test to declare brain death. That gave my daughter a time of death around 10 a.m. She was legally dead at that point. That afternoon our daughter was going to have to be taken off of life support. My MIL was very supportive, and although she cried, she understood that my daughter had no brain activity. My mom accused us of rushing things and having no faith in God. At this point, they had done a scan on her brain and found that there was 100% no activity and no blood flow. There was no chance of recovery. We could have kept my daughter on life support for the rest of the weekend if we wanted, but at this point we knew there was nothing left to do. Her body was very quickly deteriorating from the sepsis, and we also had our 5 older kids at home that needed us. There was nothing to gain by keeping her on life support an extra couple of days. My mom kept leaving the room to make herself tea. At one point she came back in and randomly started telling everyone how she was going to give out the GFM money. She was going to give my MIL $400 and give my friend $200, etc. My friend got really mad and told her that she had no right to that money, or how to spend it, so to just stop. My mom got offended and walked out again. I think my mom was trying to make amends for saying she was going to use the money for her electric at this point, but my friend was right. We actually needed that money to pay for my daughter's urn and cremation. When it finally came time to take my daughter off her life support, my mom left the room to make tea again. She even tried to take my son with her, but he refused. We decided to watch my daughter's favorite movie, Aladdin, while they turned off her life support with her in our arms. She had been off life support for over 20 minutes, and was already gone when my mom walked back in the room and said, "The little boy across the hall was declared brain dead and his parents didn't give up on him, now his eyes open today." Everyone in the room just kind of stared at her. I was holding my daughter in my arms and started crying and asked her why she would come in here and say that when my daughter was already gone. She got mad again, said everyone was against her, and left the room. When she came back later, we were washing my daughter and dressing her in her final outfit. My husband was crying a lot. My mom looked at him, started crying, and gave him a hug. She said it broke her heart to see a father mourning his daughter. She hadn't given me one single hug since we had been at the hospital. It didn't break her heart to see me mourning, just my husband. That really hurt. I asked her to come be there for me, and I felt like I didn't matter to her. It hardly even felt like my daughter mattered. The nurses came in and did some foot molds. We asked my mom if she wanted one and she said no. She started crying and changed her mind after she saw all the rest of the family all wanted a foot mold. Things kind of get blurry after this, as the last few hours were just spent holding my daughter. My mom was either napping or getting tea during this time. When it was time to go home, we all stopped at our favorite pizza place to eat. I hadn't eaten in 2 days because the last time I left my daughter to get a meal was when she took a turn for the worse. I just felt too guilty to eat while I was at the hospital. My mom refused to come in and said she wanted to sleep. So, she slept in the car while we ate together. When we got home, she decided to stay at my house while everyone else went to the hotel. She ended up getting really mad at me about the GFM thing and telling me that I basically embarrassed her by bringing it up in front of everyone. I tried to explain to her that I had no way of knowing that my younger sister made the GFM, not my older sister. No one told me anything, and it wasn't meant to be a call out for her. Then, she tried to convince me how that money should go to her because she had made the trip up there. My daughter hadn't been gone for 3 hours and I had to sit there and listen to her explain the last week of her life and all the stress she went through. By the end, she did finally end up understanding that my friend had funded the entire trip, food and all. She wasn't out any money and therefore should not be profiting off the death of her grandchild. She also asked my sister why she worded the GFM so that it would be for my daughter instead of for gas money, and my sister admitted that she did it to manipulate people into donating because no one would donate for gas. After all that though, my mom started telling me that it was my fault my daughter was gone. She told me I loved my daughter more than God and therefore God took her back. She told me that I didn't have enough faith and my daughter would still be alive if I just had faith in God. I used to self-harm as a teenager, and I have not been that close to seriously hurting myself since then until that point. I broke down crying and told her that she was pushing me to the edge, and if she didn't stop I was going to end up hurting myself. She said, well, if you kill yourself, that's God's will. My husband took me out for a drive after that so I could breathe. We spent a lot of time talking to the military chaplain the next day, and he basically talked me off the edge. After my daughter's celebration of life, my friend who originally planned to stay 2 weeks, decided to go home early so that she could take my mom home. She said that my mom being there was only making things worse for me and she was right. My mom was either sleeping or blaming me while she was there. There may have been more that happened that I'm forgetting, but that's the important parts at least. I did still talk to her after this. The breaking point for me was that after my daughter passed away, I went into a major depression, and I wasn't able to care for my pets. My mom took my pets down to her place, and was taking care of them until I felt better. I found out that she kept letting my cat out, and I asked her to stop. She never did, and one day my cat got out and came back very sick. She downplayed how sick she was in the beginning and told me she didn't need to go to the vet. Then, she messaged me at 4 a.m. on a Saturday just saying I believe your cat needs to go to the vet. I didn't see the message until much later because I was asleep, and when I got back to her she said it's too late, then sent a video of my cat convulsing and dying to me, my kids, and my brother. When I asked her what was wrong with her she said that my kids needed a dose of reality. The last thing my kids need is a dose of reality. When her behavior started affecting my kids, that was when I stopped talking to her. My mom has done a lot of horrible things to me in my life and I may talk about more of them someday. This is just what has been bothering me most right now, and I wanted to get it out. I'm so happy I don't have to deal with family meals anymore. I, 24M, finally moved out of my parents' house a couple months ago, and dear God it feels so good. I've been loving finding out that a lot of the stuff they said to me before I moved out were just lies they told me to scare me off of doing it. Like how I'd miss them, LMAO, and how I'd hate doing chores and taking care of the house on my own when it's really not that big of a deal. Every day at lunchtime I get especially happy that I don't have to deal with them anymore. It feels so good to eat whenever I want and not when I'm told to. I hated when they'd rush me out of my room to go have lunch with them. Maybe I'm busy, maybe I'm not hungry just yet, maybe I just need literally one more minute to be ready, and would appreciate them not screaming at me to go. Sit at the table now. Like, what's the hurry? It made me feel like whatever I was doing wasn't important at all. They'd constantly tell me to have some of this and ask me why I didn't eat some more of that. They'd turn the volume all the way up on the TV then complain when I didn't talk much. They'd say all this racist and homophobic stuff while watching the news, then get mad when I didn't agree with them. They'd constantly ask me about my ex-girlfriend or my studies, stuff I'm very uncomfortable talking about. And instead of letting me make my own food, sometimes they'd make something they know I don't like, then get mad at me when I didn't thank them for making it for me, even though I did always finish it. I don't like wasting food. Sounds like a lot of little things, but they did add up when I had to deal with them day after day. I can now finally eat what I want and how I want. And I'll never go back. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.